what is the heart of a character? Or what really makes a character that specific character? Now, maybe it's just the people I listen to, but it seems to almost be a constant thing of, or people debating on how a character would react, or this isn't actually how this character is supposed to be, or they've made this drastic change to this character, it ruins everything. And it just got me thinking, is there like a heart or core of a character that can just be consistent in a sense throughout all their stories? Because then, with all these different remakes or adaptations of certain stories, and also just sometimes plain old different writers writing a character, any character can look and act really different depending on what story they're showing up in, or what even form of media they're showing up in. And in a way, it comes down to opinions and desires, both of the audience and the writer's room. Because then, the audience has observed certain things about characters. So, and of course, we also desire things based on how we see them or as we are, not necessarily as they are, but those observations are there. They have what they've observed and what they are reading into it in a sense. Now, the writer's room may have other things in mind. They may have like the backstories of certain characters that haven't been revealed yet. So they know that this character will actually react in certain ways rather than the way that may actually be observed for. So they might be planning for that reveal. So then there's kind of a bit of wiggle room there. But I do think there is one area where writers can actually did it very wrong when it comes to who a character is. And that is when they justify whatever they do because of plot. Basically, I think the kind of archetypical example of this is that there's a healthy and stable couple in the story. Yet a writer comes in who wants one of those characters to actually get with this other character over here, so they have to figure out some way to break up the tuple. And so what do? They make the other member of the tuple basically act unreasonable, get unruly and grumpy, and basically perform a character assassination of that character because they have a plot point they want to get to. And that just doesn't sit well with me. Whereas in it could be that maybe you're adding backstory to them to justify it, but oftentimes it is not expected at all. There isn't any justification for it. It's just, I want something to happen, so that's what's going to happen. And I'm going to make the characters fit my mold that I want them to fit in, rather than any consistency with what's done before. And again, there are certain ways to make characters that way, and like the backstory, or you could be implementing certain plot elements and seeing how the characters would react to them. And maybe you need to just add the right order of plot elements to actually get things to happen. And sometimes it may actually be that you have to make the story longer in order to get the results you want, because you have to have the plot points in place so that the character will act in the way that you want them to. And I guess the other example of this is that it's another way of looking at this is that it's like not every character will just go straight from point A to point B. You sometimes have to take them to point C, point D, point E, and then they'll finally go to point B. So you kind of have to know your character and how they've been portrayed so that you can make that consistent with who they've been shown to be. And now the question is that can characters actually change drastically? Could they even be promoted to a new position that almost changes the way the story unfolds? And the thing is, I think, especially with Long Wonders, there's almost a status quo that is established, or static characters that kind of remain. So there's a question of, can characters really change? And maybe there are certain scenarios where it is. But it almost has to be planned for and executed right. It can't just be willy-nilly in a sense. It has to actually have a purpose. Because when it doesn't really have a purpose, then it comes off as you just wanted to change something and didn't really think it through. But let's take kind of like the sidekick into actual hero. Do they end up taking over the mantle? So they're basically going from having almost their own identity to now taking on the mantle of someone else. Or is the transformation they've been going through indicative of, yes, I'm my own person, and in fact, I'm going to separate from being the sidekick into my own identity as a person. And so there's a lot of questions you can ask about that, and whether or not what works and what doesn't. Again, sometimes this is all based on the audience. So to work fine for the author and work great as art, but it might not actually sit well with the audience. Because after all, a lot of this is really subjective. And the answer is, as to how characters react, always comes back to the priorities of either the writers or the people in charge of the writers, as they generally have some veto power over the writers. So then we have to remember that their priorities are kind of what the characters will follow in the end. So if they have a prioritization of characterization, the characters will have that consistent characterization. If they're prioritizing plot point or something else, then the characters will be molded to fit the plot point. So that's kind of the key thing to remember. But at that point, is there some way to actually make sure that a character will have an unchanging core or the heart of them that can only transform, or not really transform, but stay the same and be recognizable? And I think the thing is, you almost need to have it in writing in a sense, or have it be like, this is who that character is, this is the unchanging nature of it, and you must kind of agree to this if you are going to write this character. Because if you deviate from him, you actually won't be writing that character much longer. And I think actually having that agreement in place is almost the only way you can have it, or you actually have to have the values of these characters need to be consistently characterized in the writer's room, because otherwise lots of things are going to happen and so on and so forth, because then we all have different opinions and perspectives on things. So you need to almost come to that consensus, or have a consensus that is agreed with, to actually write those characters consistently. But that's my take as kind of a writer who actually wants his characters respected in a sense, or at least hopes that they're respected even down the line. But anyway, so those are kind of my thoughts and feelings about it, I guess. So anyway, let me know your ideas in the comments below on how we could keep certain characters, or at least most characters, having this consistent core or heart that stays the same. And if you enjoyed this video, you can like and share it so that others may enjoy as well. And you can also subscribe to this channel so that you may see more videos like this as well. Anyway, I'm Jonah, and you've been watching Lions Made Media, where we celebrate stories and the lessons we learn from them. Talk to you later, and have a great rest of your day.